My name's Helena. This is my beautiful model, Lauren. Today I'm going to show you how to get long beachy wave curls with extensions or without extensions. Let's get started. Today we're going to do some nice fun curls on extensions. Just to show that you can either wear extensions short or straight, waved, curly. And I'm just going to do some waves today just to kind of show you. I always like to pull up the top just so that way I can work on the foundation underneath first. That way you don't feel like you're dealing with so much hair at one time. I'm going to use a setting spray just to help those curls to stay. I'm just going to do them a little bit wavier. I'm not going to do them too tight. It's nice to do them a little bit more tight the first time so that way they'll last for a couple of days. When wearing extensions, you really don't want to wash too often, so I don't like to put a lot of product in. And I don't like those curls to be too tight, so that way they look a little bit more natural. So the more hair you put in the iron, you'll actually get a looser wave rather than being too tight. Make sure those ends get in, starting from the base, going to the outer ends and making sure all the ends get in, even if they're just for a minute. If it slips out, grab it from that center part, just get those ends in. Sometimes when you're working with extensions, the hair's a little bit more stubborn on the ends, so just make sure you get those at least a little bit of a bend, it'll all flow. On extensions, you don't want to put the heat too close to the actual extension itself. In her case, we have the tape-in ones. You don't want to add any heat by there because we don't want to be melting any of that or loosening it up. So we're concentrating more on the ends. I like to switch directions of the curling iron just to give it more of a natural look. If you're new at curling, make sure that the iron is not too hot. You don't want to burn the hair. So if you're not going through each strand quickly, make sure the setting is a lot lower before you actually get good at it. I put the setting spray just on the bottom just because that's where I want it to hold a little bit more because that's what falls out fast. I'm not going to put as much here because I don't want as much product going through the whole entire head, so that way she doesn't have to worry about washing her hair too often. If you like the way these curls look, you can always practice with the technique with the iron off or on the very lowest setting there is, just until you get used to the technique. Once you get faster at it, then you can turn it up higher so that way you can get more done in a shorter amount of time and more bend. The hotter it is, the more bend you're going to get as well. Again, if there's extensions, you don't want to go too close to the scalp. This is a medium-sized barrel curling iron. It's a 1 3/4 inch. If you want more wave and less curl, you can go with your wider barrel. If you want more curl and less wave, you can go smaller. Too small on long hair, though, will tend to get tangled, so I don't typically like to go any smaller than this one unless I want a few real tight curls in there. You could still use a thermal protectant or setting spray. But again, when you have extensions, I don't like to put too much product because of the fact that it won't last quite as long as in between washings. Now if it's for an event and you're going to be washing it the next day and you want to go tighter, you can put a lot of hairspray and setting spray. But with extensions, typically you don't want to add too much. The smaller the section is, the more curl you'll get. So every once in a while I like to just take a smaller piece just so things look a little bit more natural. The most common mistake people make is going section over section, because as soon as you put heat onto the hair, it opens up the cuticle. So you don't want to go over it and over and over it, because that'll cause a haircut that you don't want. If you see a curl that doesn't quite have as much wave as you want, you can go back. Just make sure it's thoroughly cooled off before you put that iron to it again. Especially when you're working around the face, you want to make sure that you don't keep going over and over and over the same piece, because once the cuticle is open and you keep putting that heat to it, it'll tend to cause some breakage. I like to grab a little bit of your own hair with your extension, so that way it blends a little bit more easily. Doesn't always have to, but grabbing a piece of your hair and a piece of the extension makes everything just kind of mesh together and blend together much better. Again, when you start at the bottom, you get the foundation in there. You could start at the top first and work your way down if you don't want as much wave. Starting at the top is usually an easy way to go when you're doing it yourself. When you're having somebody else do it, starting at the bottom will just give you a little bit more of your foundation set, so it'll last you a little bit longer. And if you section it, you don't feel like you're overwhelmed with so much hair. Now this is all her natural hair, so I'm going to add a little bit more setting spray. I don't have any more extensions up here. Now you can go closer. If you're not next to an extension, or if you don't have any of the extension in your curl, you can actually go a little bit closer to the scalp. Again, if you miss, grab it, start at the bottom. Whenever you have a finer texture hair, you want more of your product at the base. It helps to give some volume. I like to use the color-proof product because everything you start with, from your shampoo and your conditioners all the way to your styling aids, all have protection in it. So it's going to protect your color, it's going to protect you from the sun outside, and so I like to use that line. The more you build up on it, starting from shampoo and conditioner, the more protection you get in your hair. These extensions are 100% human hair, so you're going to get it to bend, you're going to get it to go straight, you're going to get it to curl. It's just not going to have a lot of the natural oils. So I don't typically recommend using a lot of heat on it often, so when you use heat on it, don't wash it real often, because you're not going to get those natural oils that you would if it was your own hair. The hair was thoroughly detangled before we started. A lot of times when you're using extensions, the hair will tangle just a little bit more, just because, again, it doesn't have any of the natural oils. So have it as detangled as possible, so that way you can get those waves in there without getting that iron lost in there. When you're curling, the ends jump out, and it's just because they're straighter and they don't have any moisture in there. So just so, as long as they get a little bit of a bend. You don't need a lot of bend, you just need a little bit, just so it blends right in. Again, I'm at the natural hair, so I'm going to use a little bit of the setting spray. I'm going to put some texture at the scalp, and what that'll do is help to dirty that scalp up just a little bit, so that way it doesn't lay right flat to the head. drop the curl down so that it flows right into the rest of the hair. Anytime you use heat, whether the hair's colored, bleached, permed, any type of a chemical, you want to be extremely careful. Even natural hair, because it opens up the cuticle. So that's why on the ends I go very quickly, because that's what's been colored. So if you notice, that's why we start at the base, because the hair at the base is very healthy, very fresh. The ends have been there a while, so I like to go quickly on the ends of the hair because of that reason. Back in, but remember, if you do have curls and you want curls to stay, you do need to have some layers in your hair, because if your hair is one length, the curls are just going to fall right down to the bottom. So some layers in the hair will help it to hold. It's okay if it's not perfect. Back in my day, we used to call those fish hooks, but now, it's okay to have those ends that are not just all perfect. And just go back in and get any of those ends that might need a little bit more touching up. Finish it off with a little bit of spray, not too much because we don't want to add too much product to the hair. Just a little bit to kind of blend everything in. You can put oils on this if you want on the ends, but typically, again, I don't recommend doing too much products, but if you are going to put oils in, make sure it's just on the ends, not anywhere near the base. And there's some waves.